Welcome to this episode of Life Science Success. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Don, and I'm a digital marketer in life sciences. And before we hop into our interview today with Paul Fabre, I just wanted to play a quick message from our sponsor. If it'll, we'll see.
Being at the epicenter of the next breakthrough in biotechnology. That moment could happen for you this October at Bio on the Bayou 2025, where Southern innovation meets scientific excellence in the heart of New Orleans. Over 300 of the brightest minds in biotech are coming together for 2 extraordinary days in New Orleans. We're talking groundbreaking research from powerhouses like Tulane, Auburn, the University of Mississippi, Xavier University of Louisiana, and LSU Health. Expect revolutionary technologies, cutting-edge research, and industry-shaping expert panels that you won't find at any other event, plus networking opportunities that could transform your career. This isn't just another conference. It's an intensive 2-day summit where real partnerships form. We leverage the cutting-edge Partnering One platform to ensure that you'll connect with exactly the right people, whether you're seeking investors, research partners, or your next big opportunity. The future of biotechnology is being shaped right here in the broader Gulf South and having a global impact. Will you be part of it? Mark your calendar for October 28th and 29th. Head to bioonthebayou.com right now and secure your spot for the most exciting biotechnology event of 2025. The next breakthrough could be yours. Bio on the Bayou 2025. Register today.
In this episode of the Life Science Success podcast, my guest is Paul Fabre. He's the Vice President of Client Services for the Greater Boston region at BioBridges, with a diverse background in entertainment, restaurant work, corporate sales, and recruiting. And so, with somebody with such a diverse background, Paul, I welcome you to the podcast here, and it's great to meet you and get to talk a little bit more about your journey and what brought you here.
I appreciate that, Don. Thank you so much for the time and the opportunity. It was great to get your message, and I'm excited to to share a little bit about the unique nature of the life journey that we all go on in our careers.
Yeah, I've talked about it in quite a few episodes. I feel like most of our careers wind up being one of these situations where you oftentimes are at different crossroads and you have to make a decision. Do you want to continue on with what you're doing, or do you want to focus in a different area and move forward? But those experiences that we gain along the way become so important as well. And so with that, my question really for you is, could you just maybe tell us a little bit about your background, all your diverse
Yeah,
experiences, and then
of course.
what led you to your current role in life sciences?
So it's interesting. I think about this all the time. So first of all, my background, I got a political science degree at Lehigh University. So that's kind of the start of my professionalization in life, so to speak. My poli-sci degree had very little to do with anything that I'm doing now, except for maybe the fact that it's a study. Like when you're in school and a university like Lehigh, you learn critical thinking skills, and you learn the ability to sort of adapt to the situations you're in fairly quickly, because you're on your own in a lot of cases. I'm from Michigan originally, so going to Lehigh in Pennsylvania was a big deal in terms of being on your own and learning how to figure it out for yourself as a pre-adult, as I like to call it, because I don't think we're adults when we're 18 years old, but we're thrust into adult situations. But that honestly led me to the 2008 recession, where I had to figure out what I was going to do to pay bills. And the natural thing was for me to end up, at the time, because of who I knew and what I was doing, I worked in a restaurant and bartended for a while, and just to kind of make the bills happen and make ends meet. But it was my wife, believe it or not, at the time. Later, she was my girlfriend when I met her, obviously then. But she mentioned that you might like to go into corporate sales, and so I got into business to business sales in workers' comp and small business insurance for ADP. They had a division that focused on their payroll customers to provide them with business insurances. So that was sort of my first exposure to the corporate sales or business development role. And that really got me excited about getting into recruiting because I just sort of saw an opportunity for myself to help people kind of get past that challenge of what do you do with the skills you have to actualize the goals that you want financially and intrinsically in your career. Believe it or not, it was actually my experience with the alumni career director and the recruiter that I had. So I had a recruiter that got me to ADP, and then I had a alumni career director that helped me figure out what to do with my resume to make it possible to get to get a job outside of the restaurant industry. And so I was really affected by their support and experience, and that kind of got me into the idea that maybe I can take the ADP work and go into recruiting because they had a recruiting division. Unfortunately, that got outsourced, and so that potential transition never was able to happen. But I found out about another recruiting company at the time, moved there about after about 4 years of working. Actually, I should say 5 years of working with ADP, and then after that, I spent 9 months at that recruiting company. Not a great fit, not a great experience in terms of what I was doing, but it was a very good training ground for what I'm doing now. We can get into it later on, but I essentially met someone on a cruise ship that recommended maybe you want to try this job. BioBridges might be a thing that could be good for you. And that was almost 10 years ago. I took that and ran with it. But my corporate background started at ADP. My sales work, I would say, started when I worked in a restaurant because as I learned from my career, alumni, he was an alumni career director. Um, my work was in a very high pressure sales, environment. And so it was a natural sort of fit to go into another sales environment, just a matter of, changing what we were doing and how it actualized. So it's a long, long discussion around my background, but that's kind of a corporate background from where I was in college to now.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's so important to sort of understand that as well as we dive deeper into these conversations. And so, um, how do you see your unique blend of experiences contributing to your success in the life sciences field too?
That's a great question, Todd. Thanks. So it's interesting because so have you ever? I'm not sure if you've ever read the book Mastery by Robert Greene.
No, haven't read that.
It's a really good book, and I would say I have to give big kudos to one of my dear friends, is basically a brother to me, a gentleman named Kevin, who gave me this book. I should say Kevin Acevedo. There's two different Kevins, actually three different Kevins in my life, like four. I have a lot of friends named the same, but Kevin is a gentleman that gave me a book by Robert Greene that talks about the different experiences. It has several different innovators and historic figures that are in the book, from Rockefeller to Tesla to um, even I think there's a couple of presidents that they discuss in there that have used the different experiences they've had in life, the myriad of places that they've been in their life, to kind of come together into the one sort of profession that ended up being their dream or their essential essentially their place in life and what they do. And so I think having come from a background of a very unique experiences and interactions with people when you're serving tables, and then bringing that together with sort of the hard work that it takes to go through a list of contacts in an Excel sheet and turn those strangers into friends or people that at least will talk to you on a regular basis. And then sort of coupling that with the idea of working with people and understanding the emotional quotients of individuals and how to, use your emotional intelligence. I think that's probably those three things of, high pressure sales environment, learning how to work hard through meeting new people and making them into trusted individuals and trusted confidants that you can work with and that they can work with you. And then also the idea of understanding how people like to interact and how you can help them do that better kind of put me in a position where I could understand the technical, or at least bring to the table people that can understand the technical nature of the work that my clients are doing. understand on a deeper level sort of how that person needs to be interacted with, or at least is preferable to be interacted with, and then putting that together with, working in a situation where a lot of my clients are calling me after they've already called their other options. They've exhausted their friends, they've called their go-to, independent contractors, and they've come to me saying, I need this person like tomorrow. Really, I could have used them yesterday. It's a high pressure situation where you have to sort of understand you can move quickly, but you've got to move quickly with intention and with the right idea. And if you have to slow down to get it right, and slowing down to make sure that you're screening the right individuals, make sure that you're asking the extra question to the client to make sure that your consultant understands this little detail that might be needed for the discussion they're going to have in the interview. That slowing down to then speed back up again. It's it's something that I learned a lot of times, honestly, serving tables, because there were situations where you have people that are there for a long time and want to hang out and spend time just meeting. They haven't seen each other for years. You have another table that's ready to go outside to back to their cars to get to leave their dinner right away. And so you're finding this sort of this balancing act of what does this person need, and how do what I have and at my disposal, how can I bring that to bear for them to utilize and leverage?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting that you use that analogy as well. But I I find it interesting today because there are so many things that are so transactional that are out there, right?
Hmm.
And it was interesting because a mentor of mine and I were having a recent conversation where I was just talking about the so many times, especially, we're currently broadcasting on LinkedIn. So let's talk about LinkedIn for a minute. But you'll get the cold outreach. Hey, I have this product, and do you want to buy it? And
Yeah.
have no relationship with this person, essentially get a spam message that, is, hey, do you want to buy this product? But it doesn't consider at all any aspects of the modern customer journey, is the way that I typically, refer to it, to our clients, right? That you
Yeah.
go from this
Hmm.
sort of maybe problem unaware stage where you just don't understand exactly what it is that you're looking for, and maybe somebody has a solution that that you should be thinking about. Then whenever you
Right.
become problem aware, it's a little bit more clear in terms of, in your case, what BioBridges offers and how you differentiate yourself, overall in the market. And then there's a comparison process that a lot of us go through. Hey, look, I could, internally, find this resource. I could, externally find this resource. I could do it through, BioBridges, and give Paul a call. And in my case, it's just really interesting watching people continue down this very transactional sort of process. Whenever, if you just built a little bit of trust and a relationship, and gave me a chance to maybe consider your offer, you wouldn't get just a cold no right
Yeah.
back
You might get
with
a
the cold
conversation.
outreach.
Yeah.
And so I
Hmm.
feel like that's what you're talking about, is like, how do you consider things, in your case, building a relationship is, a bit different whenever you're offering, resources that help people get work done. So yeah.
Yeah. And this is interesting. One of your questions, or I should say a few of your questions, kind of talk to the product aspect of companies and corporations, and how do you innovate in your space. And when you're dealing with people, it's, you know you can I like to think people can change, and they do change. They just don't always admit it. But it's difficult to innovate in this space, because at the end of the day, I'm providing a service through a person, or through a solution that is leveraged by a person's skill set. So you can't really innovate or change people in a very, here's a new added addition to this, person's skill set. It's just not that straightforward. So there's a complexity to the product offering that you're harping, or that you bring into the discussion with your point, that is, it requires some complexity and some relationship building, but it takes more time. And that's the part that I think is difficult for companies to understand. I think boards have difficulties understanding that. And this is not a criticism on them. Their job at the end of the day is to return shareholder value, and to, bring profitability to a company. I understand that. At the same time, a person takes it takes time. It takes persistence. I say this to my leadership all the time. Patience and persistence is the biggest thing that's helped me do this job. But the innovation piece comes into finding out the new way that you can maybe not slow down, but that you can be more intentional with your connection to the people, to your relationship building, to allow them to understand who, in this case, could be the solution for you because it's unique for you, because that person is a unique person and your organization is a unique organization. There's a fit there, but you have to sort of get through the discussion to understand that unique nature. It's not just on the product label because there isn't one.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me
Yeah.
about BioBridges. Who are they? What do they do? What is the overall product in this case?
Yeah, thank you. So there's, you know, very easily, we are as my esteemed colleague and one of the best people that I've worked with, Leanne Ayla says, she's very deliberate and specific when she says this to clients, and we have our meetings with them. We are a sort of a no nonsense time and materials um, contract consulting shop. We provide, consultants to clinical development organizations that are in either pre-IND all the way through phase three, support by way of consultants that we represent and manage the careers of, and providing them with an opportunity to work with programs that are unique and that are on. We're working with small, lean and mean as they like to call themselves, bootstrap biotechs funded by VC firms, um, some private equity, some core, or I should say government grants. But these companies are coming out of MIT or coming out of Lab Central with a new molecule that's got to be put into a clinical trial, and they need external support to help them move those programs forward in some departmental function, regulatory affairs, clinical development, clinical operations, biostats, all the key development areas. We provide consultants and to those clients on a as needed contract basis.
Very good, and definitely needed at different times. But also, I know that there are several organizations that are in our space, right? That are in life sciences as a
So
whole.
many.
How is how is BioBridges different than many of the other companies that are out there?
Yeah, it's something I think about every single day because you're right there. I love competition, but it also it can be vexing at times because you're trying to figure out how to really like differentiate yourself. And I've heard somebody say, one of my colleagues said one time, there's really aren't any differentiators because everybody's going to try and do things in a way that's unique to them but best for the client. But if you're talking to the same client, you're going to have some similarities. It just is what it is. I'd say the thing that makes us the most different are the people, which is somewhat cliche, but it's the best thing I can describe that would be germane in this scenario is that the individuals that we work with, both not necessarily the consultants, but along with the consultants, the people that I work with directly, the colleagues that I have in career management, the team that I have in my subject matter expertise group, and those people are the translators of all the work and words that our clients are describing to me that need to be done. The career managers represent the people that do the work, and then we have folks like myself who are client services individuals and account managers. Essentially, my job is to provide the selling process, to be in business development, and to manage the accounts. Those are sort of my three remits. So it is a sales role, but there's a lot of account management. There's a lot of relationship management. There's a lot of sort of indirect training that goes on with helping clients figure out how best to communicate with my people and vice versa. Um, I say what makes us different is that we're really trying to, and I would say specifically in our division, because we have sister companies that we work with as well that are part of our PharmaAlliance platform, which is PharmaAlliance is a platform that was started with BioBridges as one of the main pillars, and it's a private equity backed company that is going to be pulling in several brands into that platform. So there's one that's called Chiors that's focusing directly on the health economics and outcomes research and information, real world evidence, economic modeling. Whereas BioBridges helps to develop the program and the clinical trial and manage it and lead it. Chiors is going to help you understand how it's going to bring value to the market. It shows you the real world evidence of any phase it could be in to help people on the street understand, okay, this phase one non-small cell lung cancer program could have a dramatic effect in this population based upon this competitive, landscape knowledge that we have, and we can show this to you. So that's Chiors. And then we have a group called Monitor for Hire that is focused on providing site operation support. It's like 4,000 plus clinical site monitors that do all different kinds of work in the site monitoring management side of things in 60 different countries, which is amazing because so many of our clients are going to other countries to find pathways to get into clinical trials that aren't as arduous as it is in the FDA or with the FDA. Not that that's a bad thing, it's just a difference. And so going to a company or a country where you can get real world evidence right away is valuable. And so having monitors that can help you run that trial is something that we're trying to leverage as well. And because of those other support areas, or I should say those other companies that we have, BioBridges can really focus in on just being really good at the development, the operational and tactical consulting help that clients need to move programs forward. So that way we can really be, keen on the scope of the work. We can understand what type of value the person needs to bring from a intangible level to a company to help them move forward. We just had a company that has two people that were taking a leave, unfortunately. And you could tell it really it was unfortunate and sad for some of the folks within the company. And so having someone come in there as a consultant who could be keen and understanding of how the person leaving makes the client that's working there still feel is going to be helpful because it shows compassion. It shows a relatability that I think will be more impactful to work with every day. But I have the time and the skills with the people around me and my subject matter expert team, my career management team, to really understand what that person needs, not just from a tactical level, but from intrinsic sort of internal personal level without having to go, into their personal lives, but understanding just how they're feeling and looking. I can focus on looking at them and reading them. And my team with my subject matter experts can focus on what they're looking to do tactically. And then I have a group of career managers that can help me understand, okay, this person has 7 years of this experience, has really been a cool person to work with, a nice person. They have this personality. Oh, and by the way, they have availability for the next 6 months. Here you go. And so because of that, what differentiates us is that I think we're able to focus in really razor on what it is that a contract consultant solution needs to be for each individual client.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I also want to be very very specific in terms of some of the different sort of things that people come to you for, because this might help somebody as they're thinking about different ways that they might be able to find resources for the needs that they have. Can you just talk
Yeah,
about just high level, just some very specific situations where you're offering staff to support an organization?
yeah, absolutely. So there's the one example I was kind of alluding to there, where it's interesting. Every year, there's always a sort of cyclical nature of our work, where it goes from kind of being a little bit quiet when no one has any needs, to all of a sudden there's a massive sort of onslaught of companies that have a need in clinical trials, or they have a need for a medical director, or have a need for, in this case, there was it was Black Friday or the week of Thanksgiving, and it was going to be Black Friday. And we have a company that was they were working with, I'm not sure if you ever heard of a phase zero study. It's fairly understood in oncology, but phase zero is essentially it, this is going to be, and some of my clients are going to kill me for not knowing this more in detail, but it's a investigator initiated trial, for lack of a better example, where it's you're running a non, it's not an FDA approved like phase one, but it's going to be able to get clinical data with a specific site. And so, long story longer, one of our clients had a EIND that was needed to be put in. It was electric or electronic IND that needed to be submitted. And we had a few people that were involved with the company. We had, at this point, we had two or three, I think. They were helping them in quality and regulatory and then pharmacology. But they needed a medical writer, and they needed a medical writer to come in on Black Friday, no less, to work with the existing team to put together the EIND, then submit it, because the way the timeline worked and the way that the deadline or the company goals and the deadline work with the IRB, they needed to have that done sort of right away at that last week. And so we love to call it sort of a SWAT team that came in. In fact, I think the client used the word, do you have a SWAT team that we can send in help with the EIND? We already have your people that are there. Can you send us in, maybe one or two others to help us with the writing part? And so on a Wednesday before Thanksgiving, we started working together with our team of career managers, and we're able to find people that not only were available to do the work tactically, but that had the understanding of the sort of nuances with the oncology piece, that had the availability to work on a Black Friday, and was comfortable sort of working in that really fast, you know, stretch goal type of timeline. We were able to get on the phone with the client, talk to her about what the need was. Luckily, because, and this is what I try and tell clients all the time, the more I know about you, the quicker I can typically react to your needs, because I'm able to screen individuals a lot faster to figure out, these are the two I think are going to be the best. This is the one that's going to be ideal. Now, if that one doesn't work, I have others I can go to, but here's who I would choose as your best option based on what I know, kind of saving them from having to do the heads up or frontline screening. We brought in the medical writer. They were able to get the EIND done. That was 3-4 years ago, but to this day, it's still something that I hang my hat on, because it was such a substantive but fast reaction to a client need that kind of came out of nowhere. So that's the one really good example. Another areas that we do really well with is helping clients with large sort of teams of people that need to come in for a big milestone, like a major marketing submission for an NDA. We've done that for a few different companies that, specifically Takeda and well, at the time they were Shire, but they've obviously grown, and they needed a entire team of medical writers to help them staff an NDA. Now, interesting thing about an NDA is that it's sort of time. There's a time bookend on it, where you're only going to need it until the NDA gets submitted, and then you don't really need 15 writers anymore or 5 writers to help you out with it. So we were able to kind of pull people into the writing work as they were needed, and this is something that really speaks to where our functional experts and our subject matter experts can be so helpful. Is that this person, in this case, Jenny Thayer, was working with us on bringing folks in to the NDA process as it was happening, while sitting in with the client to understand what they were doing, when they needed it, and how. So those are two major areas. Medical writing is one of the biggest capabilities we have. I would say clinical operations is another one. This recent example of a client that had a fairly unexpected and unfortunately, unknown timing of a medical leave from one of their colleagues, reached out to us and said, we kind of need this person to start in 2 weeks, but they have to have these, 3 areas of experience. And oh, by the way, make sure that they're comfortable working with a team to make decisions, not just making decisions on their own. And they have to be hands-on, oh, and by the way, oh, and by the way. So, understanding how that group makes decisions, and then bringing them a person that could execute at a tactical ground level to manage a trial that was already underway, was something that we were able to do as well. And that's two really not unique, but yet unique to these client examples of where we provide help to clients and where we can bring in our support.
In terms of advancements in this space, are things like trends in the overall life sciences space impacting like the way that you're supporting companies? So like, if somebody says, hey, look, I'm building the next generation AI product, or I'm building the next
Mm-hmm.
generation precision medicine product, is that impacting at all how you support companies?
So that's a great question. Yes and no. I would say yes in the sense that when you have clients doing new things, you've got to have individuals that are comfortable doing new things as well, if that makes sense. So we wouldn't bring someone that's uncomfortable in a situation of not knowing how to figure it out on the fly into that kind of an organization. Um, so I would say it affects the way that we screen and sort of select individuals for clients. That's a very, I would say, direct effect on it. Outside of that, I would say that one thing that's automation is making it more, I think, difficult to do from a sales standpoint is we want to make sure that we're bringing the reality or the human aspect to the work and to the outreach that we're making to clients so that they know it's not just you know a bot that's reaching out to them, to your point about cold outreach earlier. But I don't think and just so I'm making sure I understand your question, the sort of the AI work within biotech itself, is
Right.
that really affecting our work specifically? I don't think so. I think there's other economic trends and other trends outside of us that have more of an effect on it. But I would say the only thing that it really changes is that we need to be we are going to have to start looking at people who have that understanding and skill set. And as time goes on, there will be more individuals who have worked in those environments that we're going to have to leverage and utilize and lean on. Um, but because again, we're still dealing with people, it hasn't had that dramatic of an effect on our day to day per se. At least not in that way.
Can you talk about any of the innovative or uh, futuristic projects or initiatives that you guys are currently working on and the potential impact in the industry?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to. So that Chior's sister company that I referred to, that's I think going to have an impact over time in our company because of the fact that we're going to be able to show even our smallest, proof of concept. They just want to get to an exit point. Companies exactly where they can position themselves to be acquired or to be, to get on a regulatory pathway that goes faster. Historically, we haven't had access to show a client exactly how their clinical trial would be seen in the market because it's so early. They're
Mhm.
not quite at the point where they even need to show commercial efficacy or need to show a competitive carve out within the market. Now we have a group of researchers that can essentially scan the corporate landscape or the competitive landscape within biotech and say, okay, here's where your drug is similar, and here's what that has meant from a real world level of understanding of here's a patient population you can support, here's how many people that are in that patient population, here are the countries that it exists within. If you took your study to this area or if you marketed your drug in this company or this country, here's what you could potentially make based upon what other similar but different but still relatively similar drugs have made or what they've cost. We have that ability to have that access or give that access to our clients, which in my experience of almost a decade now hasn't typically been experienced or been available. A lot of our companies have leaned on larger firms to do that once they get to a point where that's even worth an executive team or a board going through the process of doing the due diligence. Now we're going to be able to show clients pretty quickly, okay, your top line data from phase one just came out. If you were to take this and model it out to you know 3,000 patients in Ecuador, here's where it could be effective and here's where it might be able to be utilized. I think that's going to have an effect to allow, especially in this environment, companies to find a more valuable proposition to move their program to the next milestone, whether it's we need to raise another round of money or whether we need to look at trying to buy somebody, acquire or partner with us so that we can take this to the next step. There's access to that we can provide to clients a lot sooner than we ever have been able to. We're just still figuring out how to leverage it and explain it to people. As I'm talking to you now, I'm still figuring out, okay, this is what this means for us because it's new. But eventually it won't be new, and it's going to be something that I think a lot of clients can leverage and access. Um, I'd say along with that, we've gotten really good at automating, or I should say, making a system around checking people's references. The tough part about my work is that so many people have done so many amazing things, but not every one of those people are as good as they could be for certain clients, or have done it in the way that a client needs to. And there's no way for me to know that unless I, go through the process of checking on who they work with, or talking to individuals that, we know that might know them. But it's difficult to do that for 500 plus working consultants every single time they go to a new client. And so we have a system now that's doing references almost in a automated way, because it's sending out a reference check to the person or people that they give us as options, um, electronically. But it's getting responses, and it gives an actual like tactical score to the person's skill set along with that discussion. And so what, or with that outreach or reference check. And so what happens is that there's two things: we're getting much more specific information on what this person has done and how well they can do it. Also, we're getting a lot more responses because clients aren't having to pick up the phone, which I'm not against picking up the phone. I never will be. For anybody that might be watching this, that, you know this cold calling is dead. It's not. You have to make the cold calls. It's not always the most fun thing, but you have to do it. But at the same time, not everybody can and wants to do that. And so if it's a reference check that a person can pick up their phone and just go, yep, they did great here, they did great here. Yeah, you guys can call me at some point if I need it. And they put their phone down. That's created a much more robust system that I can then represent individuals with, that provides tactical, topical, and effective trust with the client to say, I've checked this person's background, I've checked their references, they've been done, and here's a report on what it looks like. Here you go. And that's a system called Ref Assured that we've recently rolled out, and I had no idea how it would be, how it might affect our business. And now I'm seeing brand new people that are in the industry that have all this talent that I've never known about, who we've verified, at the best level we can, that they can do what they're doing. And so that's, I think, putting us in a position where we have, um, much more, again, to go back to that point earlier about being intentional with our work, slowing down and making sure we're bringing value, not just speed. That's where we've been able to be a little more valuable with clients. We're representing our people the right way, and also a little faster because we're getting this information faster.
It's, it's so important to be able to have qualified, resources that you can offer. I completely understand that. I'm going to go back to your first example though, just for a second. So,
Yeah,
my engagements that have led me to discussions with potential VCs, or even talking to any other type of investor that's currently in the market, leads you back frequently to some broad level of a conversation as well. And it sounds to me like your ability to look at the clinical trials and offer solutions in terms of, look, this is what the scope and might bring you to the finish line faster, is such an important one. I feel like in this current funding market that most companies are in, because they're fighting for dollars, day in and day out, and having a
absolutely.
way to have a conversation with somebody that provides back data on, okay, so here's how we might approach this to either get to an answer faster or do it more economically. I feel like is something that investors definitely want to know. And I think I'm kind of laughing a little bit at this, because it's a very early stage company that I was working with. I mean, essentially, they were looking for seed funding, and they wanted to know
Hmm.
about full reimbursement rates for the product that was being developed at seed
Yeah.
funding stage. I mean, we're not even literally in the lab, and they're talking about, like, what is your reimbursement going to be like? And I'm like, okay, so we need the full marketing plan then, to be able to answer these questions, because without this and
Yeah.
looking at what current reimbursement rates, we won't be able to answer the question. So again, I think that point that you're making with regards to clinical trials is an important one. So yeah.
I appreciate that, Don. And it's funny because I think that's your point is well taken, because it's still a question that's new to our clients to even be asked. And so part of what I think we're trying to it's always annoying when a new product comes out or a new option comes out for a client. And you're like, here you go, and they're not like, ooh, yes, immediately, let's do that. Like you're like, but because in your mind, it's just what you're seeing. It's so new and that it makes sense, and yet it's not even a question that people have begun asking themselves. So for them to then have to become, to your point earlier about being problem unaware, it's still a problem that they're unaware of. But it's a question that's going to be asked more and more and more and more. And because of that, you know, it's going to become something that people have to think about, even when they're not necessarily being asked a question. But it's still new, so it's rolled out, and we're still trying to get it, get our arms around how to help people understand it. But we had a meeting on this last week, and that was the first time I really was like, wait a minute, okay, kind of an aha moment to realize this is what this question answers. It's just not being asked enough by clients yet, but it's starting to become part of the regular discussions within companies. How do we show this to have value? Because we have to raise money, but here's the information we need to show. It's not just here's some data. It's okay, well, what does this data mean? And that next step question is becoming much more common in boardrooms.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And I also think, I mean, it this stands true for my own organization as well. The days of providing a siloed tactical resource are, I believe, over. Somebody came to me recently and they said, look, I feel like all of my work anymore is gig work, and I said that's funny because if you're that transactional with all of your work, and you don't sort of think about the legacy that you're creating and the legacy that you're going to leave behind, it's going to be a very tough environment for people that are extremely transactional, I feel like. However, if you take a holistic approach and you say, hey, look, here's who the client is, and here's what it is that they're
Right.
asking me to do. Maybe there are some areas where you're having to step outside of the bounds of whatever it is that your current contract says. But at the end of the day, if it supports the client and it leaves the legacy that the client would go, hey, look, I absolutely want this resource again, because they're gonna do absolutely everything possible to drag whatever it is over the finish line. Normally
Right.
that's what clients want. And I sort of say this on the digital marketing side. Look, it's a very easy equation for us. What clients want at the end of the day is they want to be seen, and they want clear leads, right? And so if we're
Yep.
doing things that at the end of the day are providing opportunities for those, we're doing our job. If we're not, and let's just take again LinkedIn as an example. Some people
Right.
count the number of connections that they have. Who cares about the number of connections you have? How many relationships out of those connections do you have? That's what I want to know.
Right. It's like people that have Facebook friends saying, "Oh, I have 3,000 friends." I'm like, well,
Yeah,
not really.
yeah,
They're one of my friends said yesterday. They're friends with a Z on it, not like friends with an S. It's a difference, a little bit.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. I get connection requests every week. I forget what it is. It's like 10. I get 10 new followers every single day. And
Right.
I don't remember how
Right.
many connections I get every single day, but it's a lot. And yesterday I happened to pull up something that said I had over 21,000 connections. And I'm like, I don't have 21,000 relationships. I know I don't. I mean, I
Right.
fully
Right.
admit that.
Right.
I'm trying my best to make them in conversations like this, so that way I can at least count a portion of them and say, yes, I absolutely know Paul. I know Paul, and here's some of the things that I know about him and what he does at BioBridges. So,
Well, it takes that next step too. I mean, see, and I have to give you so much credit because you didn't just use your LinkedIn presence to have these connections and then send a marketing email to, which again, I'm not knocking that. I have no problem with outreaches that are sent to people. I have to do it myself. In fact, I wish that people were more targeted with their outreach to clients, so that way my emails that are targeted aren't falling on deaf ears as easily, because it's created this environment that you can't not trust it, but you just, oh, it's just another email that's coming out to me. Actually, no, I researched who you are. Like I looked at 14 people that that are mine, and I put together an email that talks about your top line results, because I think maybe it makes some sense that you and I have a conversation about consulting, because you have this massive readout coming out in 3 months. Just asking. But it takes that next step. And to your point, you took the LinkedIn connection and then said, okay, let me then create a system that allows me to outreach to these people and then get them onto a conversation that I can then have that actual connection with them, that not just one of the 21,000, they're, one of the 500 that I've talked to. But again, what you're doing takes time. And I don't know how much time you have in your day, but we only mostly have 24 hours. And if you have kids, you have less. You can't do that with 21,000 people, not right away. It takes a lot of time and effort, but you have to go to that next step, which I don't, and this is something in your questions that I thought was interesting. I worry about some things involving artificial intelligence, to a point, but it's only the thing I worry about the most is it taking away the human aspect, but I don't think it's ever going to be possible to do that because you just can't think about this kind of interaction with a bot. It's something that you can help schedule and set up, but you can't completely replace that with an automated system because people are just different. But it takes more time, which unfortunately in the market that we're in, people want their return faster because there's more risk involved. But to do the thing that we're trying to do with people, it takes more time because there's more automation. And there's this weird push and pull that we kind of have to reconcile.
Absolutely. So, Paul, we're down to the last few minutes and the last few
Yeah,
questions I have for you. First question is, what inspires you?
my family, and it sounds so cliche. You asked a question that I'll kind of tease out. One of the best pieces of leadership advice I got was from my wife, and it sounds, like I said, cliche. She's not going to watch this, so I'm not trying to you know, I'm not trying to avoid
Score
us getting
points?
into a fight or like make up. Yeah, I was gonna say I'm not trying to score points unnecessarily, but she literally said to me because I was talking about being, and I'm very fortunate and lucky to be in the position that I'm in. But there are times where it's draining and it's tiring because I feel like I have to set an example or a standard for people that I work with that I'm happy to do, and nobody's asked me to do it, but I just feel like I want my company to succeed, so I have to try and be as best that I can be. And I feel sometimes like it's a very lonely environment in that moment for, very short period of time. And she goes, get used to it. Being a leader is something that's going to feel like that sometimes. And you've always wanted to be a leader. So get used to it. So my family is massively inspiring to me. Um, I'd say my childhood and the people that I grew up with. I'm here with a friend actually for his birthday, but we're both going to be 40 this year, and we're reminiscing on like our childhood and that learning in that moment to then set my goals for what I have now. We're so connected, so that really inspires me.
Thank you for sharing that. What concerns you?
Um, huh. The political environment we're in, and it's not so much the people can believe and agree with who they want, and I have no qualms on that. I just worry that there's this lack of ability on some parts to want to learn the other perspective. And I think if we lose that, we're losing one of the biggest pieces of our human nature, which is to understand how to relate to somebody else.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting that you bring this one up because not to comment on the political side, but somebody proposed to me last night doing a panel discussion um, uh, about all of the impacts that the changes in our current healthcare environment and the research environment,
Hmm.
et cetera, are going to have. And I told them, I said, here's my challenge with that. One, nobody's going to sort of want to have the deep discussion that needs to happen. And two, the even if you had people that wanted to have the discussion, people aren't going to want to watch it. And so I'm like, I think a lot of us are exhausted kind of on both sides. Like, okay, I wish that this stuff would just get worked out because I'd like to
Yep.
lead my life. I'd like to sort of have my government and the governments around me support me and not try and take stuff away. And so that's my own belief. But hey, at the end of the day, I feel like a lot of people just also are a little exhausted at this point of a lot of the things that are happening.
I agree because there's been so much energy put into both sides, and there's more than one side, by the way, but there's so much energy put into trying to have the discussion and trying to stay calm and trying to be relatable, but also you're just exhausted. So the real work needs to get done is hard to do. You're absolutely right.
Last question: what excites you?
Oh, honestly, the future excites me, and again, cliche in some natures, but knowing what I've come through and where I am, and knowing based on that trajectory what's could happen, it's super exciting to know what's in front of me. Yeah,
Well, Paul, thank you so much for being on the Life Science Success podcast and for telling us about BioBridges and all your work and especially your journey. I mean, to me, it's been really great to have this conversation, and I appreciate your time.
Don, thank you so much. It's been an honor. I look forward to more fruitful conversations as well.
Thanks a lot.